welcome back to my channel. Today we're diving deep into one of the most explosive and jaw-dropping episodes from CBS's The Bold and the Beautiful. This storyline showcases the darker side of manipulation, false accusations, and the dangerous consequences that follow when desperation meets deception. Sit down as we uncover every detail of this shocking plot twist that will leave you absolutely stunned. The setting: a beach house confrontation. The scene unfolds at a luxurious beach house, a backdrop that has witnessed countless dramatic moments in the Forrester family saga. This particular day becomes a turning point in the lives of several characters, particularly for Ivy Forrester, whose carefully constructed facade begins to crack under the weight of her own schemes. The beach house, normally a place of escape and relaxation for the wealthy, Forrester family transforms into a battleground of emotions, accusations, and life-altering consequences. Will has stepped outside to take a phone call, leaving the interior of the beach house momentarily free of his presence. It's during this crucial window of time that Ivy Forrester's carefully calculated plan begins to unfold. The anger that has been building within her reaches a boiling point, consuming her judgment and pushing her toward a decision that will have far-reaching consequences for everyone involved, especially Dylan, who has become the unfortunate target of her rage and her desperation. The explosive arrival and heated confrontation. Ivy's fury knows no bounds as she storms into the beach house without hesitation or restraint. Her anger is not a simple fleeting emotion, it's a consuming force that drives her forward with singular purpose. She arrives with the intention of confronting Dylan, and she does so with the intensity and aggression that only someone consumed by rage can muster. The words that pour out of her mouth are sharp, cutting, and deeply personal, designed to wound and humiliate. The accusations she hurls at Dylan are devastating and cruel. She berates him for not knowing his place, for overstepping boundaries, and for failing to understand his position within the Forrester hierarchy. These aren't mild criticisms or gentle reproaches, they're vicious attacks meant to demean and diminish Dylan's character. The insults flow continuously, each one more biting than the last, as Ivy vents her frustrations with an intensity that reveals the depth of her emotional turmoil. As the argument escalates, the two find themselves positioned near a staircase leading up to the main living area. The proximity to this architectural feature becomes fatefully significant. The stairs loom in the background as their confrontation grows increasingly heated, each raised voice bringing them closer to a moment that will alter the trajectory of multiple lives. The calculated act of deception. What happens next is a moment of calculated manipulation that showcases the most deplorable aspects of human nature. Consumed by anger and driven by a desire to permanently remove Dylan from her life, Ivy makes a conscious decision to commit an act of deception so elaborate and dangerous that it crosses every moral and ethical line. Her anger crystallizes into a dark intention to frame Dylan for a crime he did not commit. The plan unfolds with shocking deliberation. Ivy intentionally throws herself down the staircase, orchestrating her own fall with careful precision. She knows exactly what she's doing. She's creating physical evidence of an assault that never occurred. As her body tumbles down the steps, she's not the victim of an accident. She's the architect of a carefully constructed lie. The bruises and injuries she sustains are real, but the circumstances surrounding them are entirely fabricated. Before Will can return, or before anyone else can witness what actually transpired, Ivy unleashes a scream that echoes through the beach house. It's a scream designed to draw attention, to create a sense of urgency and emergency. She wants to ensure that when people come to see what has happened, they find her injured and in apparent distress, ready to tell a story that will paint Dylan as a violent aggressor. The false accusation takes shape. Once Ivy has established her physical evidence in the form of visible bruises and injuries, she puts her plan into action with chilling precision. When questioned about what happened, she doesn't hesitate to point the finger directly at Dylan. She claims with seemingly unwavering conviction that Dylan attacked her in a fit of rage. She alleges that during their argument he became violent and aggressive, and that he deliberately pushed her down the stairs in an attempt to harm her. The accusation is delivered with the confidence of someone who has rehearsed this moment carefully in their mind. Ivy's story is consistent and detailed, filled with the kinds of specific observations and emotional reactions that make false accounts seem convincing. She describes Dylan's supposed violent behavior, his anger, and his apparent intent to hurt her. Every element of her narrative is designed to create a portrait of a man who is dangerous, unstable, and willing to resort to violence to achieve his goals. What makes this accusation particularly devastating is that Ivy is a member of the Forrester family, one of the most influential and powerful families in the soap opera world. Her word carries weight not just because of what she's saying, but because of who she is. She's not an outsider making accusations against a Forrester. She's a member of the family making accusations against an outsider. This dynamic adds a layer of credibility to her false claims that they might not otherwise possess. The physical evidence and its impact. The bruises and injuries covering Ivy's body serve as visual confirmation of her narrative. When people see her battered appearance, the discoloration on her skin, the marks that cover her body, the physical evidence of trauma, they naturally assume that someone must have inflicted these injuries upon her. In the court of public opinion and later in the actual legal system, physical evidence speaks volumes. The bruises don't lie, or so it appears. These visible injuries become the cornerstone of Ivy's case against Dylan. They transform her accusation from mere words into what appears to be concrete evidence of assault. Medical professionals examine her injuries and document the extent of the trauma. Reports are filed. Photographs are taken. Each piece of documentation adds another layer of apparent legitimacy to a story that is fundamentally false. The system designed to protect victims of violence becomes, in this instance, a tool for perpetrating a lie. The legal machinery begins to operate. Detective Baker becomes involved in the investigation as a result of Ivy's accusations. What begins as a report of a possible assault quickly escalates into a formal investigation. Ivy's status as a Forrester family member, combined with her visible injuries and her confident, detailed account of events, compels the authorities to take her seriously. Detective Baker, whose job is to investigate crimes and protect potential victims, has no reason to doubt her story at this stage. The investigation focuses on Dylan as the suspected perpetrator. He's questioned about his whereabouts, his interactions with Ivy, and the alleged incident. What should be a straightforward conversation between law enforcement and a potential witness becomes an interrogation, as Dylan finds himself in the position of having to defend himself against charges he didn't commit. The burden of proof in the early stages of an investigation often falls on the accused to demonstrate their innocence rather than on the accuser to prove guilt. Escalation from accusation to criminal charges. As the investigation deepens and as Ivy's story remains consistent under questioning, Detective Baker makes the decision to escalate the matter. The accusation against Dylan transforms from an informal allegation into something far more serious. Formal criminal charges for aggravated assault. This is no longer a family matter that might be resolved privately. This has become a legal matter with potential jail time as a consequence. The charges Ivy brings against Dylan carry the potential for a prison sentence. Dylan, who may have only faced expulsion from the Forrester household or social ostracization within the family, now faces the very real possibility of incarceration. He's not simply being asked to leave. He's being accused of a violent crime that, if proven, could result in years of his life spent behind bars. The stakes have been raised to a level that was almost certainly higher than Ivy originally contemplated when she decided to lie. The consequences begin to unfold. For Dylan, the situation becomes increasingly dire. What began as a family conflict has transformed into a criminal matter with potentially life-altering consequences. He must now navigate the legal system, secure legal representation, and defend himself against charges that he knows are false. The stress of this situation is immense. Even if Dylan is eventually proven innocent, the damage to his life may be permanent. His reputation is tarnished, his freedom is in jeopardy, and his future becomes uncertain. The accusation affects not just Dylan, but everyone around him. His relationships are strained by the accusations. People who previously trusted him may now question their judgment. Family members within the household are forced to take sides or navigate an increasingly complex social dynamic. The ripple effects of Ivy's false accusation extend far beyond the initial confrontation on the beach house stairs. The moral and ethical implications. This storyline raises profound questions about accountability, credibility, and the dangers of false accusations. Ivy's decision to frame Dylan for a crime he didn't commit represents a fundamental betrayal of trust and a corruption of the legal system, designed to protect victims of actual violence. By making a false accusation, she undermines the credibility of genuine victims who need the justice system to work fairly and accurately. The story also explores the vulnerability of individuals who lack the social standing and family connections that Ivy possesses. Dylan, as an outsider to the powerful Forrester family, finds himself at a disadvantage when his word is pitted against that of a family member. The imbalance of power and influence becomes a critical factor in how the accusations are received and how the legal system responds. Character development and motivation. Understanding why Ivy would commit such an extreme act requires examining her character development leading up to this moment. The anger that consumes her must have deep roots. Whether her rage stems from perceived disrespect from Dylan's actions or words from jealousy or from some other source of frustration, the intensity of her response suggests that this confrontation represents a culmination of previous tensions rather than an isolated incident. Ivy's decision to cross the line from verbal confrontation to physical self-harm and false accusation reveals a darker aspect of her character. It suggests that she's willing to destroy another person's life to achieve her goals or to satisfy her anger. This level of ruthlessness marks a turning point in how the audience perceives her character and raises questions about what other lines she might be willing to cross in the future. The unfolding drama. As the legal process moves forward, the drama intensifies. Court appearances loom. Evidence is examined. Testimony is given. During this time, Dylan must maintain his composure while facing the possibility of losing his freedom. He must trust that eventually the truth will emerge, even as the legal system appears to be moving in a direction that assumes his guilt. The audience knows the truth. They've witnessed Ivy's calculated deception firsthand. This creates compelling tension as viewers watch the legal machinery grind forward based on a lie. The dramatic irony of knowing Dylan's innocence while watching him face criminal charges creates an intense emotional experience for those following the storyline. The impact on the Forrester household. The false accusation also affects the dynamics within the Forrester family home. Will, who was outside when the alleged incident occurred, must come to terms with his daughter's deception, assuming he eventually discovers the truth. Other family members must navigate the uncomfortable knowledge that one of their own is willing to commit such a severe act of manipulation. The trust that typically exists within a family is shattered by Ivy's willingness to destroy Dylan through false accusations. The household becomes divided between those who support Ivy and those who come to realize that Dylan has been victimized by her lies. Alliances, shift relationships, are tested, and the comfortable facade of the Forrester family is exposed as fragile and vulnerable to internal conflict. A window into dark human psychology. This storyline serves as a window into the darker aspects of human psychology and behavior. It explores what happens when anger, desperation, and a sense of entitlement combine to create a situation where someone is willing to destroy another person's life. It examines the vulnerability of the justice system to manipulation and the challenges that arise when credibility is tied to social status and family connections. The narrative also touches on the concept of accountability, or the lack thereof. Ivy's ability to orchestrate this deception and to convince authorities of a false narrative raises questions about whether she will ultimately face consequences for her actions. Will her lies eventually be exposed? Will she be held accountable for attempting to destroy Dylan's life? Or will she escape punishment while Dylan bears the weight of her false accusations?